What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and show where I, Graham G. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network. And today we're talking Raw Talk, the premiere, kind of the show. Not really. Charlie Caruso called it the premiere at the start of the show, but it's not really the premiere because we've had Raw Talk before. Maybe the return or the re-debut of Raw Talk, not really the premiere. Because literally when you watch Raw Talk on the network, they include all the past episodes of the show from 2016, 2017, 2018. Now, it's been a while since we last had Raw Talk, and for me personally, I never gave a shit about Raw Talk. This is my first time, I think, probably watching a full episode of the show, because Smacking Talk was way better back in the day. When I say back in the day, I mean like 2016, 2017, and then after the summer of 2017, they canceled Talking Smack as a regular show, but they brought it back after the pay-per-views for a while, and it was never the same. Like, I like Sam Roberts to a degree. He was terrible on that show. He was almost unbearable. I'm not sure if they still had Renee Young. When they got rid of Daniel Bryan, I stopped watching the show, to be honest with you. They had Jerry Lawler on there for a while. Who gives a shit? The guy could not give two fucks. Thankfully, Jerry Lawler, after they bumped him from the Raw commentary team, did not pop up here on Raw Talk. Thankfully. This show is hosted by Charlie Caruso and Samoa Joe. Now, not to compare, but Renee Young is way better than Charlie, which is exactly what I'm doing, so I'm comparing the two, but Renee Young, in my opinion, is way better in this role than Charlie is. We see it every week on Backstage. I like Backstage. I don't really watch it every week. Not really much of note happens, but whenever they have Punk on, like tonight, I watch. I don't review Backstage. I'm not sure if I'm going to make it a regular thing to review Raw Talk. Maybe, I probably will. There's more content here for the channel. It was a 20-minute show, very short. Most of it did take place in front of the audience of wrestlers. When I say audience, I mean the wrestlers in the crowd. It took place in the ring, not at a set, not at a panel like the past Talking Smack and Raw Talk shows have. It took place like you would see any sit-down interview in the middle of the ring on an episode of Raw. It was, again, nothing really newsworthy, but they are bringing it back as a way to entice viewers to check out the WWE Network, which is now free. They do have a free tier of the network, which includes Raw Talk, among other shows. I'm not exactly sure what's included and what's not. I thought it was only like, recent episodes of Raw and recent episodes of this or that. But I had seen some stats somewhere that said that they're promoting like over 15,000 hours of WWE programming. So exactly what that entails, I don't know. That sounds like all the pay-per-views to me. It sounds like all the pay-per-views, all the Raws, all the SmackDowns. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know exactly what's included and what's not. I know a lot of the original shows are. Like if you wanted to watch the fucking Monday Night War show from 5-6 years ago, that's on there. Personally, I pay for it. I think the network is a steal of a deal for everything it includes. But if you don't want to pay for it and still want to watch Raw Talk, well, you're in luck because it's free. So the show itself from June 1st, 2020 went on the air immediately after Raw and included Charlie Caruso and Samoa Joe interviewing Seth Rollins and the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders. Now, the Rollins interview felt like it went a little long because the Profits and Raiders segment literally went maybe 4 or 5 minutes, not even. Like, they didn't even really have a chance to talk. All they said on this show, all they really announced was that, what you could do, I could do better, blah, blah, blah. The only thing of note coming out of this episode of Raw Talk with those guys was that they announced a decathlon for next week's show. And when I hear decathlon, I immediately think of Billy Madison. The decathlon they had at the end of the episode with Eric and Billy. Anyway, that's besides the point. That's what they announced for next week's Raw between the Raiders and the Profits. What they did here really wasn't much of note at all. But I thought Samoa Joe interacting with the guys was great. Charlie Caruso said that she would double tap on Ivar's Instagram post or whatever the hell that means. Because they're doing this thing, and I've enjoyed the segments for the most part between the Profits and the Raiders. They're not all great, but they've all been, largely entertaining. I don't know what they're doing with this whole Ivar, you're cute shit. Like, I'm not really sure what they're going for with that. They had someone at the bowling alley say that, at the axe throwing contest, at golf. Don't really know what they're going for, but Charlie Caruso, she's a real horn dog between, hitting on Ivar here as well as not Sarah Logan's husband, who they call not cute specifically. That's what everyone's been saying among these segments. That's been the common theme, the recurring gag here, I guess, the running gag. But, between Ivar and Angel Garza, she's clearly interested in from a storyline standpoint. Charlie Caruso is the real horn dog on this show. But anyway, in all seriousness, I thought Samoa Joe was great here. And it makes me sad. It's bittersweet because He's great in this role. He's a far better addition to that announce team on Raw Talk, the Raw commentary team, whatever, than Jerry Lawler is, who was completely pointless in 2020. He's a great guy, a great commentator, blah, 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 not in 2020. Lawler's work is just far, overstayed its welcome. So the issue is that he's so good in this role, but from what I've read, it looks like WWE might be considering him a permanent part of that announce team, which makes me really sad because they want to see him back in the ring, finally win a world title. Don't see that happening, but I think that'd be cool. So yeah, it does pain me to hear that because I think Joe, he's great. I love Joe. I want to see him back in the ring, but he's also very good behind the booth. That's the issue of being good at everything that you do, is that when it comes to being good behind the booth, they're going to want you to stay there. In addition to the fact that he's injury prone, so I can't really blame them for that. But also on this episode, they talk about how Drew McIntyre, they don't show what happened after Raw went off the air, which is kind of that's what I was hoping they would do. Like, that should be the whole purpose of the show. They just recapped what happened at the end between McIntyre beating MVP and then getting attacked by Lashley and the full Nelson. They said that McIntyre never tapped out. He never passed out to Lashley. That was it. So they recapped the Rey Mysterio retirement ceremony from earlier on in the show, which they already did a recap of during Raw itself, as if it happened a week ago. I mean, the recaps themselves are kind of obnoxious, but when you dedicate 4 or 5 minutes to a recap of something that happened literally an hour ago, I think that's completely pointless. So they aired that same video package again. I skipped right over that shit. They talked to Seth Rollins about who he thinks will carry Raw into the future. He thinks it's obviously going to be himself, of course. He says that the Rey Mysterio sacrifice was necessary, but Samoa Joe says, well, what would happen if the same thing happened to you? If you were the one having to take a sacrifice, what would you do? And he said, it's not necessary, blah, blah, blah. I'm the Monday Night Messiah, blah, blah, blah. So clearly they're teasing that Rollins will get his comeuppance either at the hands of Mysterio or his son Dominic, who they also talk about. They discuss Dominic, and they kind of tease Rollins leading Dominic into the future for whatever that's supposed to mean, and Charlotte Caruso kind of hung up on that as well. So they're clearly teasing that Dominic might join Rollins' group, which is what a lot of people were theorizing about a week or two ago. I don't see that happening. I do see Mysterio and Dominic teaming up against probably Rollins and Murphy, or Rollins and Theory, or Theory and Murphy, whatever. So they did tease that. Samoa Joe, I will say, to close out that portion of the segment, he did say, I look forward to seeing you, Seth, again real soon. And then he looked into the camera and kind of gave this Rollins a dirty look to end the segment as the Street Profits music was playing in the background, which I thought was funny, because clearly they were running out of time. So they kind of sped up the segment a little bit there. But I thought that was interesting. Now, that doesn't give me hope that we're going to see Rollins and Joe back in the ring, or rather, Joe back in the ring anytime soon to lead to a program with Seth. But it would make sense. They made no mention of their history here. It was weird to see Joe play the straight man in terms of straightforward, commentator, unbiased, whatever, when he was literally feuding with Seth. I think the last time we saw Joe in the ring was with Seth right before WrestleMania, feuding alongside Kevin and the Raiders against Rollins and his group of merry men, Murphy and AOP. So clearly they have unfinished business. I don't know if we ever saw Rollins and Joe one-on-one at that point. I don't think we did, because Joe got hurt before we could have that match. But, yeah, so I would love to see it lead to a future feud. I know they feuded before a couple of years ago, but that was back when Joe was a heel and Rollins was the face. With the roles reversed, a lot like with Owens and Rollins, it could be a fun feud. Again, I don't see them doing that. I don't think Joe's getting back in the ring anytime soon. He very well may be cleared. They just don't want him in the ring, which sucks. And I think Raw could use the extra, they have the star power. They don't really need the extra star power. But with AJ going over to Raw, Becky Lynch leaving due to the pregnancy, they could use, Brock going away for a little while, although he's not really there all the time anyway. They could use at least one more name, and I think Joe could be that guy. Matt Riddle just went to SmackDown. They were talking about maybe Dominic Dijakovic coming up to Raw. That's been a rumor lately, which is cool, but they still need someone else, and Joe fits that role to me to a T. So hopefully we see him back in the ring in the not-too-distant future. But that was Raw Talk in a nutshell. I know I went a little longer with my thoughts than I was expecting to. June 1st, 2020. Decent show, not must-see whatsoever, but I enjoyed it for Joe. I enjoyed it for the Street Profits stuff, although it was brief. The Rollins interview was all right. Just all the recaps need to go. I mean, we literally just watched this shit 20 minutes earlier on Raw itself. So they can skip the recaps. I never remember them doing that. Like, they would recap stuff on SmackDown, from SmackDown on Talking Smack, but while they were talking, they would show the footage. They don't need to dedicate a whole video package to something we literally just saw 2 hours earlier. And it's not like you're watching Talking Smack, or rather Raw Talk, without watching Raw itself. So bring back Talking Smack is what I say. If you want to promote this free tier of the network, that's great. But bring back Talking Smack with Daniel Bryan, who's on SmackDown anyway, so why not, But anyway, so I thought this was all right. Nothing you really need to go out of your way to see, but I may continue to review it here every Tuesday anyway, just to fill you guys in on what you're missing on Raw Talk. If it's not an hour show, which is what the old talk shows used to be, if they're going to be 20 minutes long, that's perfect. For me, I love that. I don't want to dedicate any more than a half an hour than I need to. So if they're like, this short in the future, I will probably continue to watch it and review it here for the channel every Tuesday. So be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content. I also uploaded the latest installment in the MCU Rewatch review series here today, on my birthday of June 2nd, reviewing The Avengers with Chris Mueller, the Doc, as well as a very special guest in Nick Torres, a good friend of mine. So check out that awesome discussion, almost an hour and a half long from today. That went up today. Tomorrow we have hashtag AskGSM. Thursday, Wrestle Rant radio excerpts. Friday, I think the Total Bellas mid-season finale, from what I'm hearing. It may not be, but either way, a new Total Bellas review coming up on Friday. Saturday, SmackDown review. Sunday, break it down with our Truth review. And next Monday, a review of the latest WWE 24 on Ric Flair's Final Farewell. So check out all that coming up this week right here on the channel. In the meantime, in the between time, guys, have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.